Some students said, "Professor, you're muted," and some other complained, "I can't see you on the screen."
So they had like very Zoom-esque related problems. Hello everyone and welcome back to the 7th and final episode of Season 1 of Digital Divide. My name is Grace and I'm joined by Professor Kim.
Hello.
Yeah, so time has flown by really fast.
Yeah, it did. And I should say I still have some BB cream left for a couple of more episodes.
Yeah, like there was so much work that we put into this show from, a lot of countless preparation meetings to KakaoTalk messages and like Zoom meetings. It's a lot.
That's true. And a lot of preparation happened online, as you said, before we ever sat down in front of camera.
Yeah, which, makes me wonder, does North Korea have a Zoom? Does it have something similar to that?
They do, but maybe not in the way you might expect.
What do you mean?
So North Korea has its own virtual conferencing platform. They call it Rakwon or Paradise. It's used for online meetings, presentations, and remote events.
So basically like a North Korean version of Zoom.
In some ways, yes. The technology is surprisingly similar. Video conferencing, screen sharing, remote communication.
That's already very surprising to me.
Now, what's even more interesting is that similar technologies are also used in North Korea's online education system.
Wait, North Korea has an online education system? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but unlike Rakwon, universities usually operate their own separate educational platform designed specifically for online learning.
So there's not one national university platform.
Right. Major universities develop their own systems for online lectures, exams, assignments, and even student management. But the underlying technology, the idea of real-time online learning is very similar.
That's really fascinating because I think when a lot of people, think about North Korea, they think of this very isolated country and not online education.
Exactly. But North Korea's leadership has promoted digital technology for many years as part of building what they called a knowledge-based economy.
So this episode's really going to be about North Korea building its own digital education system and digital world.
Right, and how online education became part of a much bigger transformation in the way North Koreans learn, work, and connect to the state.
Before we get into North Korea's education itself, let's go back to the original question posed. So what exactly is North Korea's version of Zoom?
Again, surprisingly familiar. During COVID, North Korean television actually showed the interface of Rakwon on the screen.
Really?
Yeah, and honestly, many of the features looked very similar to Zoom.
Really?
Yeah, the screen was divided into multiple sections. You could see your own camera image in one corner, a list of participants on the side, and the other participants displayed in small video windows across the screen.
So basically like gallery view.
Right, and there were also buttons for chat function, document viewing, they called document viewing, and participant management.
So do they have document sharing?
Right, it appears so. So the system called document viewing, which seems similar to screen sharing or presentation mode in Zoom. So participants could apparently can also turn cameras and microphones on and off.
That's surprisingly more advanced than I thought.
Yeah, I think many people assume North Korea is technologically frozen, like Grace did.
Yeah.
But internally, they've spent years developing their own digital systems.
And like, despite the similarities between Zoom and Rakwon, Rakwon still operates within like a closed system.
Right, completely. That's the biggest limitation to North Korean system. So Rakwon works only inside North Korea's internal network. So ordinary North Koreans still cannot casually video chat with their friends in foreign countries like we do on Zoom.
So it's internally open but externally closed.
Right. That really captures the nature of North Korea's digital transformation. The country is becoming increasingly connected within its own system, while still remaining highly restricted from the outside world.
That's a fascinating contradiction. So when COVID hit, did North Korean schools move online like many countries like the United States and South Korea do?
North Korea definitely tried to.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, before the fall semester of 2020, when COVID broke throughout the world, the government organized training sessions for the teachers on how to conduct online classes.
So even for elementary and secondary schools?
Right, and many teachers were told to bring their own laptops and tablets to the workshops. So the teachers, they rushed to the local markets to buy devices. But the reality in North Korea was much more difficult.
And that's because the infrastructure wasn't there.
Right, and the government wanted schools to prepare for online education in case the pandemic became worse. But in practice, large-scale, real-time online education for younger kids were probably very limited, maybe almost non-existent outside elite educational environments.
So the idea was there, but the system wasn't ready.
Right. For online learning to work nationwide, not only the teachers but students also needed their own devices, laptops or tablets at home, and that was a huge challenge for them. At the time, a used Chinese laptop cost around $300 in North Korean market, and even domestically produced tablet cost around $100.
And we know from previous episodes that that's a lot of money for an ordinary North Korean family.
Right. Many families were already struggling to even get food at the time. So purchasing digital device for the kids was unrealistic for most households at the time. So this created a major digital divide, if you will, inside North Korean society.
And that's really interesting because I think when people think of digital divide, they think of it as being between two countries, not something domestic.
But it also exists within countries, and North Korea is no exception. So students in Pyongyang or elite institutions had much better access to digital learning opportunities than students in poor regions.
So then what did the younger students actually use during the pandemic?
So North Korea, they relied more on self-study systems than fully live online education system. So one interesting example I have here is an educational program called the Top Students Companion.
That sounds competitive already.
Right. The program included digital textbooks, quizzes, and self-assessment tools. And students could select their grade level and subjects, review lessons, solve exercises, and immediately receive scores and even feedback.
So it's like an educational learning app.
Right. But again, access remained very uneven. Most families simply did not have the devices or network access needed for full online learning. So in reality, teachers still relied on kind of a face-to-face instruction.
Even during COVID?
Yeah. So North Korea introduced at the time something called guidance classes, where teachers physically visited students or their neighborhoods to provide lessons, assignments, and supervision.
So instead of the students logging on to class every single day, the teacher actually would go door to door.
Right, and digital tools were used mainly as supplementary learning materials, and much of the actual teaching still depended on in-person visits and offline supervision.
That's crazy. So online education for elementary and secondary schools obviously had a lot of limitations, but what about universities? Were they better prepared?
Yeah, much better prepared. And in fact, North Korean universities, they had already been developing online education systems since as early as the early 2010s. The pioneer was Kimchek University of Technology.
And to my understanding, that's like the MIT of North Korea, one of the top engineering and science schools in the country.
Right, with very smart students there. And by 2018, it already had, the Kimchek University had stable systems for real-time online lectures and Q&A sessions.
And that was before the pandemic.
Right, which is remarkable, right?
Yeah.
So they were very much prepared for this pandemic as far as the education system was concerned. So North Korean television even showed workers attending live online lectures from their workplaces, like factories, while preparing for graduation exams.
Wow. So like the workers could keep their jobs while also getting an education.
Exactly. And that's the core feature of North Korea's so-called online higher education system. They call it study while working. Make sense?
Yes.
So online education allowed the factory workers, engineers, and technicians to continue university education remotely without leaving their production sites.
And that sounds very practical. Was the same opportunities given to like soldiers who are doing their mandatory 10-year service?
Good question. And I think we discussed this briefly in the past episode. So in theory, they're not allowed to have any mobile phones, right? Even though they illegally, even the officials at the military bases, they do have illegal cell phones.
Yeah, in practice it doesn't.
Right. It's not imaginable that soldiers get access to online education provided by the legitimate, state agency.
Yeah. Going back to the workers then, it's very practical for them at least.
Right. It was designed to be practical. And North Korea wanted to produce technically skilled workers while minimizing disruptions to their industrial production. So online education wasn't just an educational project in that sense. It was part of kind of their economic strategy.
So what did these online classes actually look like?
Again, surprisingly familiar.
Yeah.
So one televised session from 2018 showed a live online Q&A lecture around 100 connected students. It's 100, so it's a lot of students at the time. And the professor appeared in the center of the screen while students joined remotely through cameras. And there was even a live chat room underneath the lecture window.
So students could like actually comment under the classes. That's
Right.
crazy.
And some students said, "Professor, you're muted." And some other complained, "I can't see you on the screen."
So they had like very Zoom-esque related problems, the
Yeah.
same as us.
Yeah, very universal, right?
Yes.
And for students who missed the live session, the university recorded the lecture and uploaded it later for replay.
And this sounds very advanced to a lot of people who don't know much about North Korea.
Right, and that's because North Korea had already spent many years building online education system even before COVID, right? And the pandemic didn't create the system from scratch. Rather, it actually accelerated a transformation that was already underway.
And this really transforms the way people think about North Korea and technology.
All right. So people often imagine North Korea is digitally frozen, but in reality, I think the country has been selectively developing certain kinds of digital infrastructure for many years. So especially in the areas tied to education, science, and even economic productivity.
So North Korea's online education system is very computer-based, desktops, lecture rooms, and wired networks.
Right, but by the mid 2010s, North Korea started developing online education systems for smartphones and tablet PCs.
Wait, so students could actually study on their phones?
Right. So Kimchek University of Technology, they completed a mobile-based online education program in 2014. And that allows students to access lectures and educational materials through smartphones and tablets.
That sounds very early.
But remember, North Korea, as we discussed in the past episodes, they introduced the 3G mobile service as early as in 2008, right? And they started to produce their own smartphones, like Arirang smartphone, back in 2013. So once smartphones started spreading, the education sector, they quickly tried to adapt.
So instead of sitting in lecture halls or classrooms, students could pretty much study from anywhere.
That was the idea of introducing this mobile-based system. So North Korean media described students downloading lecture materials onto their smartphones, so they could continue studying even when they are away from online learning centers. Factory workers, when they join their online lectures, they had to go to their computer rooms at the factory. But in this case, they didn't have to, right? So this was especially important in areas with unstable electricity. They did have, and still they have a very serious problem of electricity shortage. But once you have your smartphones, you already have the online education materials downloaded onto your smartphones, right?
And that makes a lot of sense for a country like North Korea.
Right. Mobile networks were sometimes more practical than wired networks.
So if smartphones and tablets could connect through Wi-Fi, the system and network itself must become stable.
Even though sometimes Wi-Fi is not that stable, but if it is the signal is strong enough, they should be much more stable. And in 2017, North Korea launched a public Wi-Fi service, believe it or not, in Pyongyang. They called it 미래망 or Future Network. So through 미래망, users could connect tablet PCs and their smartphones to North Korea's internal network. And they could watch videos, listen to music as we do, and access the Sci-Tech Complex website, which is the largest e-library in North Korea, located in Pyongyang. They're very much proud of that. The students even can download materials and receive university lectures remotely on their smartphones.
So students don't need to go to the computer room anymore.
Exactly. That was a major change. And students at online education colleges, mostly the factory workers, they could download lectures, access educational materials, and even take exams on their tablets and smartphones without going to special learning centers.
So by the early 2020s, online education was already becoming a part of North Korea's mobile ecosystem.
Yes, and we actually have evidence of that. So in 2021, one North Korean mobile service app called Kangsong Mobile Communication 2.0, it's a little bit long, but
yeah, very wordy.
but that included a menu linking users to various internal websites and services. And one of those menu options was simply called, guess what? Online education.
So online education apps were already being listed alongside ordinary mobile apps.
Right, and I think that's what makes it significant. The app also included links to shopping platforms that we discussed, right?
Yes.
Online shopping websites and information services and domestic websites. So online education was no longer being treated as a kind of experimental projects for the elite universities. I think it had become part of North Korea's broader mobile digital ecosystem by year 2021.
That's really fascinating. It's really interesting to see how far we've come with this series. You know, we started out with mobile phones and like digital payment systems to online education and, you know, Zoom calls, virtual campuses.
So when people think about North Korea, they often imagine a society completely disconnected from modern digital life, right? But throughout this series, we've seen something much more complicated, right? North Korea is not disconnected from technology. It's building its own digital world It's separate, it's isolated, controlled, but increasingly sophisticated.
And it's surprisingly familiar with like kids playing mobile games and like students struggling with online classes or professors being muted on Zoom calls.
Yeah, something's very universal.
Yes.
Right?
This is the final episode of Season 1 of Digital Divide, Mobile Lives of Two Koreas. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
And we hope this series helps you see North Korea not just as a political system, but also as a society where technology keeps reshaping the society, their everyday life.
And keeps changing in ways the world doesn't even see.
Right.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next season. Bye.
Digital Divide is made possible by the Uni Korea Foundation and the George Washington University Institute for Korean Studies.